Good afternoon. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee. The date is March 3rd, 2015. My name is Jacob Fry. I'm the vice chair of this committee. As Council Member Goodman was not able to join us today, I will be chairing. And I am joined by Council Members Belong, who's not a member of the committee, but we are happy to have him, Council Member Quincy, Reich, and Warsami. There are 15 items on the agenda for today. The first 6 will be on consent, and I'll just go through one at a time. Item number 1 is authorizing a Grow North financing package to Unison Comfort Technologies for $80,000. Item number 2 is a series of license applications for new liquor, wine, and beer establishment owners, licenses and permanent expansions and upgrades, as well as one settlement conference for Blue Nile at 2027 Franklin Avenue Northeast. Through regulatory services, item number 3 is a rental license reinstatement for 2914 Queen Avenue North. Item number 4 is authorizing a contract with Hennepin County Sentence to Serve for grass and vegetation nuisance abatement. Number 5 is referring to staff the subject matter of an ordinance by Council President Barb Johnson, which pertains to license fees for tiered rental licenses, which is a condo ordinance. And item number 6 is referring back to staff the matter of the food manufactured license held by Malia Youssef. This is the matter that we previously took up regarding unpaid sales taxes, and those taxes have been paid. Therefore, it will be referred back to staff and probably will not come forward again. Are there any questions on items number 1 through 6 on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Councilmember Quincy.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move all 6 items.
Councilmember Quincy has moved all 6 items. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Those 6 items are approved. Moving forward to our public hearings, item number 7, which is the Cameron Building at 756 North 4th Street. I believe Ms. Flack is here to present. Ms. Flack.
Good afternoon, council members, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Carrie Flack with Residential Finance. This project is known as the Cameron Building, and as you mentioned, it's located at 756 North 4th Street in the North Loop neighborhood. You've seen this project before. However, the 1-year time frame associated with the previous public hearing date has expired, and so thus we are holding a public hearing again today. What we're actually seeking from you today is the final approval on the issuance of $6.5 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing entitlement revenue bonds. Just to give you a brief, quick update, the developer, Schaefer Richardson, is proposing the historic rehabilitation of this building, which has been vacant for about 12 years. The project will provide 44 units of affordable housing, including studio and 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. The project has received all its approvals, and we are hoping to close and begin construction in May of this year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Flack. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak to this issue, either from the developer or anyone else? Anyone here? Anyone here? Seeing nobody here, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move approval of this item.
Councilmember Quincy has moved approval of this item. I will briefly like to comment that I've been waiting for the past year for this to come forward, so I'm really excited that Schaefer Richardson we're finally procuring all the financing. We're getting everything together. This is an affordable housing project in the middle of a relatively middle and upper income area, so this is dead on the plan. It's a difficult project given that there's about 15 trillion different sources of financing, from historic preservation to affordable housing money, but I am absolutely pumped to see it move forward. Councilmember Quincy has moved the motion. All those in approval say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That item has been approved. Item number 8 is a land sale at 1508 25th Street East and 2445 15th Avenue South. I believe Ms. Kimball is here to present.
Chair and committee members, my name is Roxanne Young-Kimball. I'm a senior project coordinator in CPED. What's before you today is the sale of 2 undersized parcels, 1508 25th Street East and 2445 15th Avenue South. There was a previous council action in 1997 approving the sale of 2445 15th Avenue South by dividing it and selling it to the two neighboring property owners. At the time, that sale didn't move forward. And so we're before you today to authorize the sale of the two parcels to three neighboring property owners. The sale would return the properties to their original plat, and it would allow two of the purchasers to have alley access that they currently don't have. We did send for neighborhood review. There were no comments that were received. However, there was a previous review in 2006 of our proposal, and the Phillips Neighborhood Association approved our intention for both 1508 25th Street East and 2445 15th Avenue South. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Young-Campbell. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing on this item. Is there anybody here to speak? Is there anyone here to speak? Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Cano. Thank you, Councilmember Cano. As was moved forward the staff recommendation, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in approval say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That item has been approved. Item number 9 is considering an application for extended hours for Mesa Pizza at 921 Washington Avenue Southeast. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have an application from Mesa Pizza for an extended hours license. They are located at 921 Washington Avenue Southeast. They have operated a pizza restaurant here since April of 2014. They have two other restaurants under the same name, one in the Uptown area at 1323 4th Street, or in the Dinkytown area, 1323 4th Street, and one in the Uptown area at 1440 Lake Street. Both of those locations have extended hours as well. Their current hours of operation on the Washington Southeast address are from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the week and from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. On Friday and Saturday. They would like to stay open until 3 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. That's the only requested change to their hours. This license has a requirement for a public hearing. We did notify all property owners and residents within 300 feet. We also notified the Prospect Park East River Road Neighborhood Association and the Stadium Village Commercial Association. We received one response to that mailing and notification, and that response was in support of the application. Mesa Pizza in this particular location has done a couple things based on a security review with the 2nd Police Precinct. They have designed their space so that there's room for the queue line to be formed inside. So there will not be queue lines going outside. Since they're opening their business in April of 2014, there have been no significant police calls for service at this location. Councilmember Cam Gordon's office has supported this application, and again, this is an annually reviewed license that if there are problems foreseen or found in the next year, we can review that license annually. The commander of the 2nd Precinct has not given support of this application and indicates that they are not interested in supporting extended hours licenses in the Stadium Village area in proximity to the light rail line, the new green line, as that green line does run 24 hours a day. Based on our review, this application seems to meet all of our requirements, and staff's recommendation is to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Are there any further questions for staff at this moment? And I will note that Councilmember Cano has joined us, although that should have been obvious since I already called on her for a motion. I will now open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to testify to this matter on Mesa Pizza? Anybody, please come forward and state your name and address, please.
My name is David Hathaway. Address is 329 9th Street Southeast in Minneapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
And I'm one of the owners of Mesa Pizza. And first of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak at the public hearing. And we're asking to be open till 3 a.m. Friday and Saturday only, not during the week. We're allowed to be open till 11 Friday and Saturday. So it's an extra 4 hours on Friday night, 4 hours on Saturday night. We have 3 other restaurants. One is out of state in Iowa, and then we've got one in Dinkytown and one in Uptown, as the gentleman said. And they both are open those hours, so we're very experienced dealing with, security issues, late night issues, police issues, drunk customer issues. I also think the policy that the police have of unilaterally not approving any late night extended hours licenses is a little short-sighted. I'm curious as to whether that applies to alcohol licenses or just extended hours, no alcohol license like we do. We don't have any alcohol whatsoever. And then lastly, we take the behavior of our customers very, very seriously. We ask you to let us try this, and if it doesn't work out, we get police complaints, there's any issues, you can take it away, and we won't complain whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. My only request is you open this new joint is that you have mushroom and onion pizza, because the one at Dinkytown doesn't always have it, and it's my favorite.
Okay.
Do you have anything further?
No, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Do we have anybody else that wants to testify to this item? Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to move approval of this item.
Councilmember Warsame has moved approval of this item. Is there any discussion? I want to add that this is part of an overall attempt to make the city of Minneapolis really a 24-hour city. So it's not the scenario where we're just rolling up the sidewalks as soon as midnight or even 2 a.m. hits. Not to mention what this does is it disperses a lot of the activity that we presently have focused entirely downtown. Now it's moving it out over at 921 Washington Avenue Southeast. So Councilmember Warsame has moved the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That item is approved. Item number 10 is Pappy's over 2006 Washington Avenue North. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is another application for an extended hours license by Pappy's. It's a restaurant that does not have an alcohol license at the intersection of Broadway and Washington, approximately. Their hours are currently provided in our code. They can be open during the week until 10 p.m. and on Saturday and Sunday. Friday and Saturday nights, until 11 p.m. They are requesting to be open until midnight, Sunday through Thursday, and Friday and Saturday until 2 a.m. A public hearing is required. We did notify all property owners and residents within 300 feet of this application. We also notified the Hawthorne Neighborhood Association and the West Broadway Business Coalition. From that notification process, we received no responses. The 4th Police Precinct did do a security plan review with the applicant. This particular restaurant is not adjacent to any residential uses. And we reviewed the history of complaints related to this site, and there are no significant police calls to this area. We believe they meet the requirements of our ordinances, and staff's recommendation is to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Are there any questions for staff? I believe the Councilmember Yang will ultimately have a question and certainly would like to comment, but for the time being, we will move forward to the public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And I'm going to hold off a moment before the motion is made so that we can get quorum again, as Councilmember Cano has left for a second. Let's skip ahead right now. We're going to skip ahead to item number 12 for discussion. Item number 12 is Minneapolis Hennepin County Office to End Homelessness. And I believe Mr. Beckman is here to present. Mr. Beckman? And
Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. I am Mikkel Beckman. I am the director of the Office to End Homelessness for the city of Minneapolis and for Hennepin County. And our office is in charge of Heading Home Hennepin, the 10-year plan to end homelessness. The 10-year plan was approved by this body, by the City Council of Minneapolis, as well as Hennepin County's Board of Commissioners in 2006, launched in 2007. And so we have completed 8 years of a 10-year plan, and I am here today to give you a very brief update on the plan. And along with me today, we have the President and CEO of Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Tim Marks, who will be talking about an initiative that is connected to the Heading Home Hennepin efforts, the Downtown 2025 Business Council plan to be the first city in North America to end street homelessness, and the Mall Livability Redesign Task Force. And so I'd like to just begin by giving you a glimpse of sort of where we're at with the numbers and rates of homelessness. Starting with families, it was challenging to begin a 10-year plan the year the Great Recession started in the United States. And in spite of that, we have been chipping away at things that I'm happy to say that after a rise in family homelessness during the recession, we are starting to see homelessness trending downward again among families. So you have here a chart showing family shelter use in Hennepin County. We are running approximately 30% under where we were a year ago. So really, really promising news there. Single adult homelessness has remained somewhat steady over the last several years. We shelter between 900 and 1,000 single adults on any given night in Hennepin County. And youth homelessness remains steady as well. I would point out the one area where we have not developed enough shelter, emergency shelter, is for the youth population. And so we have roughly 65 beds for homeless youth in our community, and yet we know that 300 to 400 homeless youth are on our streets on any given night. In addition, we have...
Mr. Beckman, if you can hang on just 1 second. Councilmember Quincy.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Beckman. I was just going back to the youth homelessness count. The numbers you're showing there are the unsheltered, or the people that are young folks who are going through our youth shelter system. Is that correct?
Correct. And the blue line represents minors, youth under 17, who we typically shelter at the Bridge for Runaway Youth, which is our emergency shelter for minors.
Right. And so building on the premise that we don't have enough youth shelter opportunities, we're always going to be stagnant because our shelter opportunities have remained stagnant. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Yeah. And as part of your point in time, and perhaps you're going to get to that in a few moments, are we seeing a change in youth unsheltered numbers?
I will show you a chart going back about 5 years coming up in the presentation, and you'll get a glimpse of that coming right up.
Thank you.
Yep. In addition to people staying in shelters, we do have a number of folks living outside in our community. We count them every 3 months through the City of Minneapolis funded street outreach effort through St. Stephen's Human Services. And this is a graph showing how we're doing with those rates. I'm happy to please that I just got the numbers from January of 2015, and they're the lowest numbers we've ever seen. We had 105 people living outside, and these are typically, again, single adults. So we are making progress there as well. Here's the annual point in time count, and you can see the trends. If you look down, Councilmember Quincy, to the unaccompanied youth, we've got numbers here showing a slight decrease from the height of the recession, which if you look at 2010 and 2011, you'll see that as well. So we do an annual point in time count every year. We report these numbers to the federal government, and as do all of the communities in the United States that receive federal dollars. One of the things that is the most challenging about our plan, again, we had 5 major strategies. We wanted to prevent homelessness when we could. We wanted to provide outreach to people to connect with them. We wanted to provide 5,000 units of housing. We wanted to change systems that worked with people to make them more efficient and to work better for people. And we wanted to bring people to self-sufficiency. One of our biggest challenges right now is that we are blessed to live in a community with high incomes and a great housing market if you are a housing provider. One of the downsides of that, though, is that our vacancy rate has been incredibly low through the life of the 10-year plan. And for the third quarter of 2014, the vacancy rate in the city of Minneapolis was 2.1%. I think most folks consider a 6% vacancy rate to be a healthy rate. And so we have a very tight housing market. And when you look at the affordability end of the housing rate market, it's even lower than that in some cases. As a result, rents are climbing and have climbed in Minneapolis. One-bedroom apartment average rent is over $1,000 now. The fair market rent for a community of this size should be about $796. Average rent for a two-bedroom is $1,440. And income levels, especially for the populations we see in shelter for families, are women on assistance. The rates for assistance have not risen since 1986. And so in 1986, a one-bedroom apartment probably was running about $440 a month. And so rates have gone up, incomes have not. The good news is we're seeing fewer people applying for cash assistance at the county. And so that, again, is a sign of coming out of the recession and a low unemployment rate as well. This is just our priorities as an office moving forward. Our number one priority is to advance the housing agenda and to try and get more units online, especially for the lowest income people in our community. We continue to try and engage the community. This is a community plan. We hold annual meetings. We hold monthly brown bag forums. We bring our provider network together every month for families and single adults and youth. And we continue to try and organize in that way. Our third great priority is to do multi-level systems change work. We have a lot of initiatives underway at Hennepin County. We are partnering with the state of Minnesota and their new efforts around ending homelessness and working with city staff as well. In addition, we are trying to capture trends and opportunities and become a data-driven community. And so our office is doing a lot of analysis. And then finally, we're trying to augment our office capacity to do even more work. We are now an office of 6 staff, thanks to Hennepin County and the city of Minneapolis, and involved in any number of projects going on. The one I'll highlight, and then I think we'll move on to the next part of the presentation, is because we were seeing an increase in repeat shelter use by families in Hennepin County and just higher numbers, we launched a pilot project called the Stable Families Initiative. When we looked at who was using our shelter, a lot of it was young women. 35 to 40% of the families in our shelter system are women under the age of 25 with kids under the age of 5. They are typically part-time workers who earn $10 an hour, working 8 to 10 hours a week, and supplement their incomes with assistance. And there is not a lot of housing out there for these young women and their children. And so we have launched a series of pilots to try and give them rental assistance for up to 2 years that will also bring some employment-related services to them so that they can really develop a life plan and move towards self-sufficiency. And we just wrapped up our first year of this pilot, and we are seeing, I think it's part of the reason we're seeing fewer returns to shelter. So.
Mr. Beck?
Yeah.
Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was watching the presentation yesterday in the Health, Energy, Community Engagement Committee, and you spoke at some point as we were talking about the youth cabinet, not the youth cabinet, I'm sorry, the Cradle to K initiatives from Mayor Hodges' office, and some of those recommendations. I just wanted to highlight and see if we could marry that topic of homeless families, young people, and the work with the school system, and how are we doing that pilot as well?
Great question, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Quincy. Again, I think as I pointed out yesterday, there's really only 2 ways to make housing affordable for very low income people. It's to lower the cost of their housing, but also we want to raise their personal incomes. And so whatever we can do in the way of job training and in the way of raising minimum wages and boosting people's skill sets so they can go out and get a better job and bring home more money to go out on the housing market and purchase the housing they need, we need to be in that kind of line of work. And I was really grateful when the mayor launched the Cradle to K cabinet that housing stability was a goal for young families in our city and for all children age 0 to 3. And so I've been a part of that cabinet, and the plan is now out in draft form, and we're looking for feedback on it. And there's a lot in there around developing housing for young families and also trying to bring them more opportunity. So,
And we were looking at the numbers earlier. So many of our families are actually families of young people. We're, young moms in a shelter system who would also count as youth representatives, as well as having children under the age of 10.
That's exactly right. We actually, when you look at who's in our shelter system, we're having a homeless youth crisis right now in our community. And again, I think it speaks to that, young people typically earn less money than us older folks. They don't have the job experience and the years under their belt, and so they have a less ability to go out and find housing. And in this rental market, it is nearly impossible. So
When you were speaking of the pilot that you're just concluding, where was that done? In the city of Minneapolis, or was it within Hennepin County?
it's within Hennepin County, and so we do have rental assistance programs in both suburban Hennepin County and in the city of Minneapolis for these young women.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you,
Real quickly, moving forward, our work plan for the coming year is focused on these 5 areas: launching coordinated assessments, a system that will make shelter stays shorter, focusing on youth, on merging the employment world with the homeless world, on families, and on ending veteran homelessness, which I'm happy to say I believe we will end veteran homelessness in the city of Minneapolis by December of this year.
Say that again one more time.
I believe we will end veteran homelessness in the city of Minneapolis by December of this year.
Does that mean we're going to beat Des Moines? Isn't that the race we're on?
Yeah, Des Moines and St. Paul.
Well done.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Tim Marks, and I'm with Catholic Charities here in the Twin Cities, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Nicollet Mall Livability Task Force. This was a task force established by the Downtown Council in conjunction with the new investments that will be made with Nicollet Mall and as a part of the Downtown 2025 plan to end street homelessness. This task force was broadly representative of downtown businesses and property owners, city government, county government, including the police force and the city attorney, and many social service providers. That was broadly representative that as we are making these investments in Nicollet Mall, let's make the mall livable and work for everybody was the central premise, and how can we go about doing that? A lot of what we need to do in going about doing that, and this is my experience in New York City working in Times Square, is that if law enforcement, social service providers, and the business community work together and really collaborate, you can address homelessness, you can address other community concerns that come around harmful youth activity and other things that are offshoots of homelessness. We spent a lot of time training and working with law enforcement and want to really encourage law enforcement and our downtown ambassadors and social service providers to communicate well, and to communicate well with downtown property owners, that we can identify people who need assistance. We can identify problems and provide outreach through a community policing approach. And a lot of this will, we think, make sure that we understand, and everybody understands when you're on the mall, what the expectations of the behavior are for everybody in the mall. We want a mall that is for everybody, but everybody has expectations. And if you visit the High Line in New York, one of those iconic new parks, and it's really clear what the expectations are, and people are more able to live up to them and know the consequences if they don't. There will be some things, and this was, the task force spent a lot of time on this with guidance of your city attorney, that enforcement may play a role, but we can't enforce our way to a livable mall. There may be some things that you can do by ordinance to help set the expectations, but we also need to look at issues of design. And we also just have to establish the expectation that some noisy and other behavior on the mall is not helpful for the community. We also want to engage in a public education campaign, again, to set the expectations of what is going to go on the mall, the behaviors that are okay and not okay, and also to establish the expectation that providing resources to panhandlers and others is not helpful to them and is not helpful to the community. We also want to look at things, and this is part of kind of providing meaningful activity. We want to expand the shelter hours and expand the way that we do coordinated assessment. Just an example, Catholic Charities runs the Higher Ground Shelter just across from Farmers Market. We were just provided the resources to expand the shelter hours. Instead of having people leave at 7, they now can leave at 10 a.m. And that has allowed our staff, the staff of St. Stephen's and others, to engage those individuals to start working on their housing and jobs plans. And Councilmember Fry, you'll appreciate this, there's a running club that meets Tuesdays and Thursdays at Higher Ground. That allows those people to go for a good run, take a good shower, and be ready to go about their day. We also want to have daytime activities for young adults experiencing homelessness and to be able to provide where can they be, what can they do, how can they get connected to jobs. And two particular items is how do we address transportation needs? A lot of the individuals who are vulnerable need to get from Higher Ground to the Opportunity Center to YouthLink to the Hope Street Shelter that Catholic Charities operates. If we can provide better transportation, it will work better. In addition, if we can provide storage for belongings so people don't have to carry around a great deal of materials as they look for a job. Outreach. Catholic Charities has a significant, and many providers do, a relationship with St. Stephen's. If we can have more outreach workers on the street, that investment will get people into housing, get people into jobs, and get people into stability and developing those personal relationships. More programming. We want to make sure that the programming and the ability that is going to happen on the mall is a mall, again, that will work for everybody. An important part is the design. How will the design work to make sure that those who are on the mall know what the expectations are, that there's not a lot of hidden spaces, and that allows a community to build about how the design works. That is kind of a summary of what we would like to accomplish. This is not going to sit on a shelf. Ben Shardlow from the Downtown Council staff, the Director of Public Realm Initiatives, is part of a staff group that meets monthly about how to take these ideas from this broad task force and make sure that we're actually implementing them. And we appreciate the support and leadership from Councilmember Quincy, who was a co-chair of this group, along with John Wheaton from Fagry Baker Daniels, who I know will allow this the opportunity to follow up on all these initiatives.
Thank you. Really appreciate the presentation and all the work that, as well, that Councilmember Quincy and Mr. Wheaton have been doing over the last year. It's really impressive. And the running group is called Mile in My Shoes, and they've done really an extraordinary job just reactivating people's lives in general. It's not just about health, it's about mental well-being and all of the above. So that being said, it is time to vote.
No. According to Joe.
The motion will just be to receive and file. Is that right, Joel?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to say you're not able to even
no, I know we are now.
motion. Oh, now you can, yes, certainly.
So Councilmember Kano is a real trooper in that she's not feeling well, but she will be in to vote and then out to take care of herself. So it's just a motion to receive and file the report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That item is approved. I'm going to move back to item number 10, which is Pappy's 2006 Washington Avenue North. I believe Mr. Wilson has already given the staff presentation. Have we already done the public hearing on this one? I don't recall.
We have.
We have already done the public hearing, so all that's necessary at this point is a motion to approve. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move approval of that item.
This item has been moved by Councilmember Quincy. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That item is approved. Item number 11 is wedge table at 2412 Nicollet Avenue. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Wedge Community Co-op at 2412 Nicollet is asking for a permanent expansion of premises for a sidewalk cafe and patio. Our traffic engineer has reviewed the sidewalk cafe plan. It meets all of those requirements. We've had a security plan reviewed by our police department in the 5th Precinct. All items pertaining to this application seem to be in compliance with our ordinances. The public hearing notices we sent to the community and to our business and neighborhood associations came back with one response in support. That was a verbal voicemail response that we got on our phone system. Because they meet all of the requirements, my recommendation is that you approve this application.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to speak to this item? Anyone that wants to speak to this item? Anyone? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I happily move approval of this item.
Councilmember Warsame has moved approval of this item. Is there any discussion on the topic? Seeing none, All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. That item is approved. I'm going to jump forward now to item number 14, which is the Corcoran Triangle Project. I believe Ms. Holmes is here to speak to this.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Members of the committee. My name is Shalonda Holmes. I'm a senior project coordinator in residential finance. And I'm before you today recommending TIF project analysis authorization for Corcoran Triangle, which is near the intersection of Lake Street and Hiawatha and just 1 block south of the Blue Line Lake Street LRT station. A Corcoran Triangle will be a new construction building located at 3120 24th Avenue South in the Corcoran neighborhood. It is a transit-oriented development that is made up of 135 units. The developer is Wellington Management, who has projects in the area that have been successfully completed. Of the 135 units, 89 units will be at 60% median income, 37 at 50%, and 9 units will be at 30% median incomes. These 9 units will be for those experiencing long-term homelessness and suffering from HIV/AIDS. Wellington Management is partnering with Claire Housing to provide supportive services for these 9 units. Detail regarding the unit mix is on the project data worksheet. The project will also include underground parking, a stormwater management demonstration area, a tot lot, bicycle amenities, and it will also create connections to the existing neighborhood through to the light rail station. The total development costs for the project is approximately $25 million. Developer equity is included as a source of funds. The project has secured almost $5 million of funding from Minnesota Housing, Hennepin County, and the Metropolitan Council, as well as Affordable Housing Trust Funds. The developer has submitted an application to CPED staff for preliminary approval of $13 million in entitlement bonds, which carries a 4% tax credit. And we will be back later this month with more information on the bonds.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Just one quick question here from Councilmember Quincy.
Oh, no, thank you, Ms. Holmes, very much for your presentation and for the thorough report. I know this has been on the topic for a while. We've been looking at this. The information is very clear, and I know the committee members are well versed in this project. So not to cut you off, but I was wondering if we could just move, if I could, Mr. Chair, direct staff, authorize staff to enter into continued analysis Corcoran Triangle proposal for TIF.
Thank you, Mr. Quincy. And I will actually amend that motion to direct staff to limit the TIF analysis for a note not to exceed $1.5 million and to work with the developer to identify other non-city sources to fill the resultant project gap. So first is the motion on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The amendment passes, and then we have the underlying motion. And I apologize, Ms. Holmes, I'm just trying to get through as quickly as possible, given that not everyone's feeling well. So, and then now is on the underlying motion. Do we have any discussion on the underlying motion to approve $1.5 million to allow staff to undergo some analysis to determine the TIF grant? Any discussion? Seeing none, Councilmember Quincy has moved approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. That item is approved. Thank you so much, Ms. Holmes. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 15, and then we're going to shoot back to item number 13. Item number 15 is the 2014 Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council third annual report. That report has already been given to the HEC committee, and I forwarded a couple of those items on to the CDRS committee, given that those items are more applicable to the CPED department. Specifically, there were a few requests related to CPED. One of them was to allow both commercial as well as community gardens to receive leases from the city. The second one was to hopefully to have an overarching look at the total number of parcels. I believe we have 770 something in the entire city that are presently vacant, to determine which of those parcels are developable, which of those parcels are potentially developable. It's a hard word to say. and which of those parcels are absolutely not able to be developed. And if in cases where they're not able to be developed, then perhaps then we can look at moving forward with some form of urban agriculture. I do have an underlying staff direction, but I know Councilmember Yang is here, and I will call on him to speak particularly to the issues in the Fifth Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate being here and being given the opportunity to speak on this. For the purposes of Ward 5, but also North Minneapolis, there are 22 community garden lots available on the north side that CPED has made available. And of those 22, 12 are in Ward 5. With regards to just empty lots alone, it's my understanding that there's about 141 empty lots in Ward 5 for sale by the city. And then there are about 70 in Ward 4. The average annual cost of maintenance for an empty lot in the city is about $3,600. So essentially, we're spending about a little bit over $500,000 to mow the grass and shovel the sidewalks on empty lots in Ward 5. And if we include Ward 4 with that, I mean that's another close to $250,000 on that. And to me, we should use the assets that the city has to do better for the city, and we shouldn't be spending thousands of dollars to keep an eyesore. These lots should be used for more active and engaging purposes, community gardens, parklets, public art spaces. Literally anything would be a way to increase the attractiveness and vibrancy of the neighborhoods I represent. And we already have a way to get a lot that we want to develop back quickly if we can develop it. And, in most of those CPED leases or contracts, there's a section that says that at any time during the lease term, either the lessor or the lessee may terminate these lease agreements without cause by giving the other party 90 days prior written notice of the termination. And, Mr. Chair, when I look at your staff direction, part of me just thinks that, July 31st, 2015 is probably a little bit late in terms of, trying to convert some of these lots into community gardens, just because the growing season is fairly short in Minnesota. And, by this time, I mean, it's pretty much harvest season and, it's going downhill at that point. And, I guess for myself, I would love to see a lot more lots just be used in a way that's productive, that helps the community there, and also that saves us as a city money, $3,600 over the course of a year for an empty lot. I mean, we can do other things with that, especially because we have a lot of empty, boarded and vacant homes up on the north side, and that type of money can go into the rehab of the homes, if anything else. So I'd love to see that sort of creative use of our lands so that we can, get to a better solution.
Thank you, Councilmember Yang. And I will ask Mr. Lutz on perhaps what would be a better timeline. Of course, we want to see this move forward as quickly as possible, but I also want to respect the time that CPED has to undergo the analysis.
Which would be September. I think we were talking, so that or the end of the year.
Well, so it's presently July 31st. So what you're saying is that you can't move any quick. September would be later.
I know, but in terms of just the staff capacity to undertake the work, I'm not sure I could talk with Ms. Brennan and to get you a timeline that could move it up if we can. So
thank you, Mr. Lutz. Councilmember Yang, would you be okay with keeping it at July 31st and they can move as quickly as possible?
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and make this staff direction, directing CPED Housing and Economic Development staff to review the vacant property list to determine which parcels are developable based on economic conditions and lot size, and thereupon develop a set of policy recommendations regarding the Food Council's land access policy goals to present to the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee no later than, and we have July 31st, 2015. So that's the staff direction. No further discussion, I see. All those in approval of that staff direction, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. That item is approved. And we have no further business today. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.